morning, ladies and gentlemen, and we are back after a short break. And hey, I tell you what, it's so good to be back. Today, Monday the 13th of March, 24 degrees and mostly cloudy right here in Brisbane. But once again, it's beautiful from where we are. Well, right now, what do we have for you today? Today, we will be looking at the news update together with the Daily India Report. Let's get into the room. Well, Australia is a growing migrant country and a very, very successful multicultural community, I must say. But what about the health? How can we improve the health of the migrant community? As we know that migrant communities, many times don't know what is available, what sort of things they need to do, or what sort of medical facilities are available as well.
What we've noticed is that people from refugee and asylum seeker backgrounds often have barriers to healthcare in that, firstly, English language is a barrier. Secondly, the stuff around cultural beliefs around health and disease can obviously play a big impact. And then thirdly, just the lack of familiarity with the Australian healthcare system.
Tell us about the Waterwell project.
Yeah, sure.
Sounds fantastic.
So I started it 12 years ago when I was a first-year doctor, and essentially it's all about providing health education to refugees and asylum seekers in communities across Victoria, Tasmania and New South Wales. So it's about kind of empowering individuals to take responsibility for their health.
Alfred, why have you become involved and taken this on as a bit of a passion project?
Yep, so by being part of this program, we have lost a lot of family, friends and family members due to cancer, due to this horrible disease. And where I was born and raised in Syria. So we have experienced the Syrian civil war. And that itself made me aware how important it is to do something to protect our people. We cannot just sit around and see people passing away on a daily basis. And these people, they were enjoying their lives, living happily, and just seeing their lives taken like a second. So we have to do something about it. We have to take actions immediately. And by being involved in this program, I was able to share. So since I'm studying biological and medical science, medical related subject in the University of Melbourne, I already have this knowledge about cancer. But to me, knowledge itself is considered useless if it's not applied. So this program was a great opportunity for me to be able to share my knowledge with fellow participants and raise awareness and just save the world we live in and protect our people and our community.
And how does that make you feel working with your community, and I'm sure in what you're doing, stopping people getting cancer by encouraging them to get checkups before cancer forms? That must be very fulfilling for you.
It's very proud because, so when I came to Australia, this country provided a lot to me, and they helped me a lot through my studies, through my just life in general, to get my life back together, because experiencing war is different, and I would not wish anyone to experience that feeling. So I would always love to give back to my community and give back to my second mother country, and just help it as much as I can, as I possibly can, with all my power.
How does it make you feel when you listen to what Alfred's doing? You're a doctor at RCH, aren't you? The Royal Children's Hospital.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I think it's something that's kind of ingrained in us. So my parents are from refugee background as well, and so I was fortunate enough to be first generation Australian, and so the mantra was always to give back to the community. So they were really grateful for what they received when they arrived here, and so it's kind of about sort of passing that on and helping others.
What can others do watching right now to ensure that we don't have a generation of new Australians not getting the healthcare they should be getting?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. I mean, as clinicians, so as doctors and healthcare professionals working within the system, I think it's really important that we try and provide culturally appropriate care. And that means, when you're sitting down with a patient, being really open and honest about the healthcare system and perhaps talking them through and answering questions that they might have and really kind of dispelling some of those myths that they come with. And really just as a system, as a whole, I think it's about working with communities and, ensuring people like Alfred are out there and kind of being ambassadors and able to spread accurate health messages, really.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for both coming in.
Yeah.
Thank you
Well
for what
done,
you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's awesome starting a Monday with positive people who are out there actually not just talking about it but doing it.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Yeah, because I believe with working with the Youth Affairs Councils Victoria, so it was a great pleasure to be there, and I believe that the sole meaning of life is to serve humanity as much as we possibly can.
And what a great message to start off this Monday and start off this new series as well, is saving humanity. And that is just wonderful. I've just got off a Zoom program which was held by GoPio New York, and they're raising funds for the earthquake victims in Turkey. So, there are so many good people out there doing so many wonderful work. And what a positive note to start on that. And of course, it is much needed. Healthcare is much needed. If you look at the healthcare professionals for what they do, this is amazing. But there are many refugee and migrant communities who might not be aware that these things are available, what kind of healthcare is available to them. The well-being of everyone here, especially in Australia, counts, and we have an excellent medical system. So well done. Well, one of the other things that sometimes we follow is sometimes we try and follow the American system and the gun culture. Well, as we know, in Townsville, there was multiple gun sorts fired. There was an emergency situation, but the emergency is now ended. Here's that report.
We've only just minutes ago heard an update from police, and they have said that this Public Safety Preservation Act declaration that they enforced around 9 o'clock last night has now been revoked. So all up, this exclusion zone that was established here in Kerwin, where I am now, lasted for around 10 hours. And the reason why it has now been revoked this morning is because police went into a property around the corner from where I am just here, and they located a 50-year-old man deceased. They say essentially the risk to the community here in Kerwin and the people in this exclusion zone is now over. No one else has been injured. Of course, all of this comes after we heard reports of gunshots last night around 9 o'clock, multiple rounds from residents that we spoke to last night, and police set up a very, very high police presence here, exclusion zones all around Kerwin, and they established a command centre just around the corner at a hotel just by me. So now that this exclusion zone has been revoked this morning, of course police are going to be reviewing the incident with their ethics command. There'll be a report for the coroner. But as for residents in this community who've been essentially locked down for the last 10 hours, they're now emerging this morning, able to leave their homes. We've seen kids just behind me now passing through, going to school, and people leaving and exiting their driveways after what was a very tense and serious night.
A very tense and serious night, and when we look at those kind of situations, there were gunshots, multiple gunshots, which were then reported. Now, just thinking, if there is a gunshot happening in your neighborhood, how will you identify? How would you know these are gunshots, and how quickly you be able to identify that and report? So that's some food for thought there, because not everyone has had gunshots in their lives. They wouldn't even know what it sounded like. So there we are, up to date. Well, right now also in Queensland, we are always prone to fires and floods.
Didn't run into any crocodiles, thank God for that, but the river in Burketown has dropped about 400 mils, so hopefully there won't be any further rises, but we'll keep it positive.
Yeah, well, the crocodiles aren't a joke, are they? Because that is a risk factor. I mean, you could end up with anything in those waters up there.
That's correct, but they're much diluted per square kilometre in the Shire the size of 42,000 square kilometres, and we don't know how many crocodiles, and I don't want to know.
How many people ended up evacuating? You clearly took the decision that you needed to stay.
How many people evacuated? Well, of course, you're talking about the Shire as well. So out of Burketown, up to 100. And then Shire-wise, well, probably another 120. So quite considerable numbers, considering the Shire population somewhere around about 420, and Burketown about 160. So yes, a considerable amount of our citizens now are in neighbouring shires or towns or cities.
I understand your wife was evacuated.
That's right, wife, daughter-in-law and granddaughter is over at Normanton, Carpentaria, on the highest block of land in Normanton, I believe.
Can you get a grasp of just how much we're looking at here when we talk about the damage that might have been done, the stock that might have been lost? When are we going to know that?
There's going to be some time for as far as the loss of assets, counts, personal stock numbers, same thing. But, it's been raining for now, it was a few dry days since basically Christmas. So on the evacuation, when we come in the day for yesterday, even aquatic birds such as bulbers are swimming because they hadn't had enough time to dry their wings. So, and I tell you what, the poor old bulber is not going to do any medal in the Olympics.
Yeah, look, everyone's just facing the challenges up there. It's clearly safe enough for you to stay in Burketown. When might people be able to come back to their homes? What kind of clean-up are we looking at?
Yeah, well, certain parts of Burketown have stayed relatively high and dry. Another metre would have changed that. But, those who are fit and healthy, we'd love to see them back in the next 2 weeks. But those that may have some medical conditions, please stay where you are. You're best place there because we stretch our resources here in Burketown and Berkshire. So, yes, come back when it's safe and come back when you, haven't got those difficulties that you might have in a remote area such as Burketown.
So there you go. As we mentioned, that Queensland, majority of Australia is flat land. There's plains and plains. So when there is floods, that's no way that the water can go but to flood the area, flood the plains. And when that happens, this is what we end up with. And it is good to see that the evacuation processes are happening well, that the SES is out there and help is provided. But there are many times complaints about not being provided in a timely manner. So, raising that the danger level, raising the alarm in a very timely manner is very, very critical. But that doesn't always happen because many times it's hard to predict. Sometimes there have been alarms which have been false, like by the time people have evacuated, nothing's happened, and then all of a sudden people have been caught without notice as well. So our heart goes out to them. Well, right now, I know everyone loves chips from time to time. I love samosas. But what goes with that? Tomato sauce. What is going to happen if we have a shortage of tomatoes? Here's that report.
Mountains of tomatoes are boiled,
just slowly let them sink in,
pureed and seasoned in an Italian sauce-making tradition that's migrated to backyards and kitchens across Australia.
It's a lot of work. I mean, I start at anywhere between 8 and 9 in the morning, and I'm still going at 10 p.m.
Paul Burgess drove 300 kilometres to find the right passata tomatoes this year, but not everyone has been so lucky.
We've just said no. We're just going to have to let it go for this year.
Wild weather that swept through Victoria in the growing season has battered farmers in the north. Prices have climbed as supplies have dwindled.
There's a lot less tomatoes out there to be able to create that product with.
Generations have gathered in this Moonee Ponds home for Sauce Day over past decades. But the cost of living pressures mean the family is sitting down to store-bought passata this time around.
It's great to be together. And obviously this year it's not going to happen.
I'm pretty sure we paid $20 a box last year, or maybe $25, and this year it's $30.
Farmers groups say there's no threat to the supply of regular tomatoes that you might find at a grocery store or here at a produce market. But a labour shortage that continues to hurt parts of the agriculture sector is another reason there are so few passata tomatoes to go around this year.
No one was expecting this. No one was predicting it. No one was putting that in their budget.
Growers and sauce makers alike hope the tradition gets a fair shake of the sauce bottle in years to come.
We don't want to lose this tradition.
Jessie Thompson, ABC News, Melbourne.
And it's always good to keep up the tradition, but of course looking at those floods and the short supply of tomatoes is going to put some people out of sauce. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now it's time to go to our daily India report.
Welcome to the Daily India Report, which brings you reports, interviews, features and more on India and the Indian diaspora. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has become the first foreign leader to board India's homegrown aircraft carrier INS Vikrant. He received a guard of honour from the Indian Navy on board INS Vikrant. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese on March 9th became the first foreign leader to come on board India's first homegrown aircraft carrier, INS Vikrant. The Australian Prime Minister, who is on a 4-day visit to India, sat inside the cockpit of LCA on board INS Vikrant off the coast of Mumbai. He also received a guard of honour from the Indian Navy on board INS Vikrant. Albanese in a tweet said, "I was pleased to formally announce Australia will host Exercise Malabar for the first time later this year, bringing together the Australian Navy, Indian Navy, US Navy and Japan." He also shared the photographs from on board INS Vikrant and said, "Today I met with incredible service personnel from the Indian Navy who have undertaken exercises with Australia." Albanese said, "I am honoured to be here today on the newly commissioned Indian designed and manufactured INS Vikrant at the invitation of Prime Minister Modi. My visit reflects my government's commitment to place India at the heart of Australia's approach to the Indo-Pacific and beyond." On the free trade agreement between India and Australia, Albanese said that the FTA between India and Australia is a transformative deal that will unlock the next level of potential in bilateral trade and investment. Addressing the India-Australia CEO Forum in Mumbai, Albanese said the delegation of Australian investors that accompanied him was one of the most serious and high-profile to visit India from Australia. Albanese was optimistic about the complementarities between the two countries, saying the moment marks a turning point in accelerating economic cooperation. Albanese said Australian fresh lobster and lamb used to be subject to a 30% tariff in India. Now it's zero. Tariffs on other products like avocado, citrus and seafood are on a pathway to zero. The two countries signed the Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement in April 2022, while the deal came into effect in December 2022. The US will soon be signing an MOU with India on the semiconductor sector to promote cooperation in the segment. US Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo on March 9 said that she will sign an MOU on the semiconductor sector with India to promote cooperation in the segment as it holds huge opportunities. She also said that several US companies in the electronics and semiconductor segment have a strong desire to diversify their supply chain and be more resilient. The US Commerce Secretary said, "We talked about how we will share information about semiconductors, about semiconductor commercial opportunities between our two countries, and how to have a continuous dialogue around policies that would encourage private investment in the semiconductor ecosystem." She added that the talks include figuring out opportunities, if there are any, for joint ventures or technology partnerships between the two countries. She noted that both countries are implementing a semiconductor incentive program, and we discussed how the two sides can coordinate those investments, which is in the interest of India and the US. Both sides have discussed issues like providing transparency in their incentives and coordinating and collaborating on ways to administer their semiconductor initiative, as tremendous opportunities are there. Talking about the commercial dialogue, which will take place on March 10th, she said it is intended to work together around supply chain, semiconductors, climate and clean technology, energy and healthcare and pharma, as well as the digital sector. Raimondo is in India for the India-US commercial dialogue and India-US CEO Forum meeting on March 10th. She is leading a high-power business delegation. The nomination of former Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti as the new U.S. ambassador to India has been passed by the Senate Foreign Relations Committee by a majority vote. The United States Senate Foreign Relations Committee of the Joe Biden administration advanced the confirmation process for Biden's nominee for ambassador to India, former Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti, on March 8 for a second time. Garcetti's nomination will now move to the Senate floor. Biden renominated Garcetti for the job in January after his confirmation got struck in the last Congress due to allegations that he had ignored sexual harassment allegations against a close aide. The U.S. has not had an ambassador in New Delhi since January 2021, the longest ever period of diplomatic vacuum at this level from Washington's end in the history of the India-US bilateral relationship. The SFRC vote does not mean Garcetti has been confirmed, but it was a necessary condition for the confirmation and has opened the doors for the US to finally have an envoy. The administration has welcomed the move while acknowledging in an implicit admission of divisions and politics coming in the way of legislative confirmations of executive nominees, that no other country would leave a position vacant in a place such as India for so long. The SFRC on March 8 voted 13-8 in favor of Garcetti, with two Republican senators, Todd Young and Bill Hagerty, joining ranks with their Democratic colleagues in advancing the nomination. Both senators are active on Indo-Pacific issues, critical of China, and see India as an important partner. All political parties in the state of Nagaland are going to support the ruling alliance of NDPP and BJP, which leaves no opposition member in the state assembly. For the second time, there will be no opposition in the Nagaland State Assembly as all political parties have offered their support to Chief Minister Neiphiu Rio. But it's not clear whether they will be included in the government or they will extend support from outside. The Nagaland government was without any opposition in 2021 as well and was governed by an all-party government after renaming the People's Democratic Alliance government of NDPP-BJP as the United Democratic Alliance. The sole party in the opposition then, the NPF, with 26 MLAs, joined the government along with an independent. The state took the same path after the February 27 polls, with NDPP-BJP winning 37 seats in the 60-member assembly. Deputy Chief Minister Y. Patton of the BJP said, since the MLAs of most parties have submitted their letters of support to the government, who knows when we will have an opposition-less government. When the elected members give outside support, we will have to discuss, and only after discussion will we take a decision. At present, we are comfortable with 37 seats. As many as 8 parties, 4 of them from outside the Northeast, have won in the just concluded polls. Sharad Pawar's NCP, which is the third largest party with 7 MLAs after BJP's 20, has extended support to the Rio government. So have NPP with 3 MLAs, and Lok Janshakti Party and Republican Party of India, with 2 each, which are with NDA. The lone JDU MLA has also backed the government. With the arrival of the spring season, the Kashmir Valley is blooming with flowers, especially the almond and cherry blossoming. As the weather changes in the Kashmir Valley, the pink and white flowers on the almond trees have started blooming, which makes the scenery no less than a floral wonderland. Badamwadi of Srinagar city has thousands of these almond trees, which are in full bloom and all set to welcome tourists as well as locals. The gardens of the valley are finally turning into colorful palettes with almond and cherry blossoms, and thousands of tourists are thronging the Kashmir Valley only to witness these beautiful visuals. These are the first flowers to bloom in the season, and Badamwadi Garden, located at the foothills of the Kohi Maran mountain, has more than 1,000 almond trees. Tourists generally do not know that there is Japanese cherry blossom in India, and that too filled a whole garden. Kashmir has been a beautiful paradise for many, and it doesn't stop surprising tourists. A huge number of locals as well as tourists are thronging the almond garden. Looking at the footfall, the government is hoping that all the previous records of tourist arrivals would be broken this spring. In a tribute to every mother's unconditional love for her child, Zee Music has released the song Maa Ke Dil Se from the film Mrs. Chatterjee vs. Norway. Zee Music Co., the official music label of the Rani Mukherjee starrer Mrs. Chatterjee vs. Norway, has released their latest song, Maa Ke Dil Se, following the success of their previous song, Shubho Shubho. This heartwarming song has been released as a special celebration for Women's Day and is a tribute to the unconditional love that every mother has for her child. The video features Rani Mukherjee and lyrics penned by Kausar Munir beautifully portray the unbreakable bond between a mother and her child. Maa Ke Dil Se has been crooned by Javed Ali and Dipakshi Kalita and composed by Amit Trivedi. Talking about the song, Rani Mukherjee said that Maa Ke Dil Se is one of the best songs that I have heard in recent times, defining the mother-child relationship so beautifully. The first time I heard the song, I was extremely moved by the words penned by Kausar. I could only think of my mother and my child and my journey from being a daughter to becoming a mother. Directed by Ashima Chibbar and produced by Zee Studios and MA Entertainment, Mrs. Chatterjee vs. Norway is slated to release in theatres on 17th March 2023. That's all for this bulletin of the Daily India Report.
And thank you very much, Simran, for that report. And wonderful to see Kashmir in full bloom, and what a beautiful place and what a beautiful time of the year to be there if you get that opportunity. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a Australian Indian radio production, and the Daily India Report is brought to you by PIOTV, our team in Delhi, and they do a wonderful job. And once again, we don't have all of the updated news, the functions and events today. We will look at what's already happened in the weekend. The updated version will be back on air from tomorrow. Hi, it's been wonderful having your company as usual. Right now, it's gone up to 26 degrees and mostly cloudy on the 13th day of March 2023. Until tomorrow, it's goodbye from us. And as I mentioned before, it's always wonderful to have your company. So enjoy the rest of the day and remain safe.